This is Environmental Science 2, Chapter 7, Part 2 on Atmosphere and Climate. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be discussing the greenhouse effect and carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. There's a lot of terminology in the media and the news that uses a lot of terms really incorrectly or gives a negative connotation to a lot of scientific terms, and the greenhouse effect is one of those terms. The greenhouse effect is how heat is trapped by our atmosphere down near the surface in the troposphere, and it helps warm the air. Now, a lot negative connotation is the greenhouse effect is bad because greenhouse gases are bad. Well, if it wasn't for the greenhouse effect, there wouldn't be life on this planet. As far as we know, scientifically speaking, we need liquid water in order for life to evolve. And if we did not have the greenhouse effect, if we didn't have warmer air in the troposphere, we wouldn't be able to have liquid water. So the greenhouse effect in itself is good. We need that heat near the atmosphere to keep our liquid water. Now, what the problem is of course, the buildup of these greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere that can cause a little bit of excess heat to be trapped in the troposphere. But the greenhouse effect is a good thing. What can tilt the greenhouse effect into global climate change is the buildup of particular greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is a huge greenhouse gas, probably that takes up the most amount of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, as well as methane. Lots of different oxide compounds like nitrous oxide, and some compounds called chlorofluorocarbons, which we will discuss in a little more detail. When we take a look at how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere, there is actual seasonal variations of that. So when carbon dioxide is measured in the air, summer CO2 levels are lowered slightly. That makes sense because in the summer months we have all of our trees that have active leaves that are photosynthesizing and putting oxygen in the air while taking that carbon dioxide out. And in the winter, carbon dioxide levels are raised slightly, which again, with very little trees in the winter, those seasonal variations that will cause the CO2 levels to rise slightly in the winter. Overall, however, when we take that information and that data year after year, or decade after decade, the levels of carbon dioxide are rising globally. So here we have a chart that shows the relationship of the year to the CO2 concentration. And you can see that the line is very jagged, and that would show the seasonal variations from winter to summer. However, as you can see, as the decades increase, we are increasing the overall global levels of carbon dioxide. So again, those seasonal fluctuations, those summer months can take care of a little bit of the extra CO2 that is in the atmosphere. So the plants can take that CO2 and give off some O2. The global rising of carbon dioxide levels are possibly contributed to human activities. Of course, our consumption and burning of fossil fuels, as well as deforestation or getting rid of trees. Again, if those trees aren't there to take up the carbon dioxide, that carbon dioxide will stay in the atmosphere. So this is when the greenhouse effect becomes bad, when it becomes a runaway, out of control greenhouse effect. That's what we call global warming. In general, by 2050, most data will show that the average global temperatures will increase by about 4 degrees. And you think, well, 4 degrees, what's the difference between, 4 degrees? It'll just be a little bit nicer outside every day. Well, there's a huge difference between the freezing point of water and 4 degrees. So if we have a global increase, we can see some different effects from that. One of the effects that of a warmer Earth that may occur is that weather patterns may change. When those oceans are going to absorb more heat because they are a giant heat sink, we can increase the rates of hurricanes and typhoons. They can also be larger as well and last longer. The more humidity that is in the air with that heat is going to be the perfect storm, literally, for hurricanes and typhoons. Also, with global increasing temperatures, the ocean currents may change with the addition of fresh water. Again, 4 degrees globally doesn't seem like a lot until you think of the poles in the north and the south. Once that ice melts, all of that fresh water will be added into the ocean, and that can change the direction of the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. And weather patterns all over the world can be affected with that. If weather patterns are disrupted, we could see some big hits to the agriculture industry. If the jet stream, for example, changes, weather patterns can shift over North America into Canada, basically leaving the United States farmland unusable because of a drought situation. So again, you think 4 degrees, well, what's the difference? Well, a lot of things can be affected by just those 4 degrees. So if weather patterns change, our growing seasons may change as well. Sea levels, of course, if those polar regions warm, those sea levels could rise. Marine life can suffer. Remember, every living organism has a range of tolerance, and marine animals have a very low tolerance for fresh water. If there's enough fresh water that can get dumped into the sea, those salinity levels will change. The water temperature may rise, so it either will be too fresh water or too warm for some species, and they may not survive. If the water is rising, then of course our coastal cities will be in a little bit of trouble. Many cities are placed around coastal areas for a reason, because of its direct access to the ocean for shipping and those types of things. In general, that 4-degree change could mean several cities being underwater. So what can we do to slow up this change, to make the global warming effect less? Of course, reducing fossil fuel burning is one of the main alternatives that that science is looking at, using synthetic alternatives, things like biodiesel fuel, or maybe a natural alternative. There are cars that are powered by hydrogen and water. Taking a look at preserving and replanting forests, making sure that those trees are there to take up the extra carbon dioxide, could help keep those levels of the carbon dioxide gas buildup down. This has been Chapter 7, Part 2 on atmosphere and climate.